Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about some of the weapons that moved down in the update. I think it was beginning of this week, maybe last week. So we're going to be talking about the Beretta M1 and the ZB-26, which are both BR2 now, and how they fit into the lineup, how I think they perform. You get the idea. So, let's start with their stats. On a fully upgraded Beretta M1, it's a BR2 weapon, does 6.8 damage at 10 meters, 4 at 100, and you fire at 570 rounds a minute, 2.5 reload time, 26 by 10 vertical horizontal with a 40 round magazine. That's probably the part that stands out the most with this gun. It also fires in auto and semi-auto, and it weighs 4.1 kilos. So, this is a very powerful addition to the BR2 lineup for Germany, but I think that the power behind it kind of depends on which faction you're playing into. So, just for a comparison, if we look at a fully upgraded MP40, the MP40 is doing 7 damage versus the 6.8, so it's doing a little bit more damage. Shoots at the same fire rate with 570 rounds a minute. The reload's a little bit better at 2.1. It's actually a lot better. It's like 0.4 faster. It's 27 by 9 recoil, so it's comparable, but a little bit better. And it has a 32 round magazine, and it does not have semi-auto. Now, I can't think of a time when I've ever used a Beretta M1 on semi-auto, but I guess the option's there for you. I think the question really becomes, do you value a 32 round magazine or 40 round magazine more when you're gaining almost half a second of reload time on the larger magazine? And that goes back to what I was just mentioning. I think it depends on who you're playing into. If you're fighting into the Americans, having 40 round stick mags at BR2 is amazing. It is only 8 rounds more, though, than what they already had. And it calls into question which SMG is really worth investing in. If you have none of them, then I think it's a different answer than if you already have some. So, for example, this is all kind of a moot point for me, because I played before the merge, and so I have some of all of these guns because they're all in different campaigns. So, like, in Tunisia, I have a whole squad outfitted with Beretta M1s because of that. But if you're somebody who started playing after the merge, and when they moved the MP38 and 40 down, you got either the MP38 or the MP40, is it really worth you investing all of the silver to upgrade to Beretta M1s? Not really. At least in my opinion. I think it can be a very powerful weapon fighting against the Allies, situationally, but it's also going to be a pretty big silver investment to get them up and running, and it's not actually, like, head and shoulders better than an MP40. It's effectively an MP40 with a bigger magazine, and it's not a tremendously larger magazine. It is probably, I'm just spitballing a number here, like 20-ish% better, magazine capacity-wise. And that probably will come into play against the Allies, because the Allies, right now, their best SMG is probably the Lanchester, which, 32 round magazine on that too, but you're probably going to be running into lots of Stens and grease guns. So, The thing is, when you fight against the Soviets, I don't think either gun makes a fundamental difference, because you're fighting against PPSs, and the PPS shoots faster, and it is a 32 round mag, and off the top of my head, I don't remember its reload stat, but it's gotta be really close. It's basically the gold standard of submachine guns at BR2. And if you're going into a building, like, situationally, I think you can give the Beretta M1 an edge. Like, if you're going into a building and you need to clear a room, 8 more rounds, you can potentially kill 1 or 2 more people. I mean, if you're really picking your shots and hitting people in the head, maybe you can squeeze 3 people out of that, but I feel like 3 people is really pushing it. Realistically, you're probably only going to be able to get 2. Like, really thinking about it, right? The chances of you getting 8 shots, you'd have to be shooting everybody more or less in the head. But theoretically, it's possible. So, basically, if you're fighting at short range, clearing buildings, the Beretta M1 is fantastic. If you're fighting over longer ranges, though, and you're on, say, or Ardennes, or if you're fighting down the length of a street, or across the streets building to building, let's say you're a block away from each other, whatever, right? Then maybe not so much. In that case, you might be better off with something like the MP40, because you actually have time to reload and you don't have somebody sitting there stuffing their boot in your face. But it's really situational. It's really just individual preference. That being said, I think a lot of the submachine guns at this BR are very similar. They're all kind of side grades to each other at this point. The MP38, for example, is very similar to the Beretta M1 and the MP40 as well. It's doing the same damage as the Beretta M1, it's shooting at the same fire rate as both of them. It does reload faster at 2.2, but slower than the MP40. Its recoil's really close at 2810. Really, just the differences that you're going to come across are the magazine size and the silver economy. And getting into silver economy with it, in the tech tree, because of how things are placed now, if you're somebody who hasn't progressed through the German tech tree yet, now your choice is going to be, do I want to get the MP38 or do I want to get the Beretta M1? Because the Beretta M1 comes between the Beretta 38 and the MP40. And so, before you could theoretically hold out for the MP40 off the MP38, because they're both BR2 weapons, and the MP40 is a marginal upgrade over the Beretta 38, or not the Beretta 38, the MP38. I can names, I promise. But nowadays, the Beretta M1 is kind of a side grade to the MP40, it's kind of a side grade to the MP38, sort of. I think it's probably better than the MP38 in the same way that the MP40 is. Like, the MP40 does marginally more damage, but it's such a small amount that whether or not it was actually worth waiting for is really up to you. The Beretta M1's kind of the same way. If you look at it against the MP40, you're looking at ammo capacity and a little bit less damage. If you look at it against the MP38, it's basically the same gun, but with more ammo. So, is it worth buying a second set of these if you already had the MP40 or the MP38? Probably not. In those cases, I think you're better off just sticking with what you've got. It's going to be like 3,000 silver just to pick these up, and then you still need to upgrade them, so if you're rolling in the silver, it's not a problem. But for most normal people who are blowing through their silver all the time, it's probably not somewhere that you want to start spending silver again, unless you have a brand new squad to outfit, in which case go for it, just to have variety. Variety is the spice of death, after all. That being said, initially when it moved down to BR2, I was pretty excited because I like using them. I liked using them in Tunisia when that was a thing. I have a whole squad of guys with them from Tunisia. But the more that I look at them, like, statistically, the less I actually think it's a big deal of them moving down, because they're such a side grade. They're so situationally better. It's like, specifically, if you're fighting a guy 3 feet away from you in a room, and his whole squad's in there, and they don't shoot you and let you get a whole magazine off, you can probably kill the whole squad. And like, that's the benefit over the MP series. Whereas the MP series, you reload faster and you can just fight across streets better. So, if you don't have either. Would I recommend it over the MP38? Again, I think it's just user preference. I think that they're both equally good, and if I was going to jump into a random game of Enlisted, and you were going to hand me a squad, and they had MP38s or they had Beretta M1s, honestly, I would not care which one you gave me. I'd be happy with either one. So, moving on from there, we have the ZB-26. And the ZB-26, I think, actually falls into the same category of, I was excited to see it move down, and the more I look at the stats, the more I think it's kind of a nothing burger. Like, it's reminiscent to me of a top-loading bar, but it does shoot a little bit faster, and it doesn't have semi-auto. But for its stats, it does 12 damage at 10 meters. This is on an unupgraded gun. And 10.8 at 100. It shoots at 750 rounds a minute, 3.2 reload time, 35-20 for recoil, and 20 round magazine, only in full auto, and it's a top loader, so it's gonna obscure some of your vision. I don't know if I'm just getting used to using top loaders, but I mean, I don't like having my vision obscured, but it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. And to be fair, there are certain guns, like certain submachine guns that are top loaders, that it does annoy me on more than others. But for light machine guns, I feel like I'm just getting used to it. But 750 rounds a minute is pretty good. It's going to go up probably close to 820 when you fully upgrade it. And the damage is in the neighborhood of semi-auto rifles, so you're going to be putting people down pretty easily with it. So all of that's going to be really good. The downside is the 20-round magazine and the recoil. 35-20 is going to be a little bit rough. So if we look at, by comparison, its chief competitor, the MG13, also unupgraded, it's doing the same damage. It shoots at 600 rounds a minute, which is slower, but arguably a better thing at this BR. Its reload time's 3.1, and its recoil's 28-20 with a 25-round magazine, also only full auto. So I think you're going to be a little bit more mobile with the ZB. I think it weighs a little bit less at like 10 versus 13. You're going to get more ammo in the magazine with the MG13 at 25 over 20, and firing at, I assume fully upgraded, is going to be like 660. I think 660 is going to be a lot more controllable, both ammo-wise, but recoil-wise, versus the ZB at 750, 820 for its fire rate. And because it's got higher recoil and it shoots faster, you're probably going to have more felt recoil with the ZB. That being said, I like the ZB, and I know that this is going to be, like, a dumb reason for me to, you know, like the gun, but it's because the gun just feels like a beefier machine gun. Like, it sounds better. I just like that. It's more of a booming machine gun, and the MG13 is more of a rattling machine gun, and I like my boom and DACA. I am a little bit of an orc at heart. But statistically, I think the MG13 is probably the better machine gun, and even economically, the MG13 is the second machine gun in the tech tree after the Beretta, and it's a tier 2 BR2 weapon, whereas the ZB is a tier 2 BR3 weapon. And ultimately what that means is that the ZB is going to run you 3,000 silver a pop, and the MG13 is going to run you 1,500. And that alone, it being half the price, especially for the number of them that you're going to need. Like, if you want one machine gun squad, you need 3 of them. And then if you're putting machine gunners on other squads, like, let's assume you need, like, 7 of them, right? You're getting 2 MG13s for every ZB that you pick up. And that's not even looking at upgrading them. Like, it's way more affordable to get the MG13, and statistically it's probably better. I think the main draw to the ZB is probably its uniqueness, because it's a Czech light machine gun, and you can potentially make interesting lineups with it. Like, you could make a Czech machine gun squad, for example, and give them ZB-26s, and then give them the VZ-24. Playing up, you can do the ZB-26 with the ZH-29. I'm not sure about the ZK-383. It's got the Z in its name, which makes me assume that it might be a Czech weapon, since most of them have that, but I just don't know. But it would be pretty cool to make like a thematic, like conquered territories recruitment kind of squad. Give them all their local weapons. That would be cool. And if you're running multiple machine gun squads, it might be neat to have the ZB-26, but as for whether or not it's worth sleeping on the first two machine guns, I don't think so. I think the MG13 is good enough and it's cheap. So the other issue is that if you're going to spend 3,000 silver on a German machine gun, I think you're far better off spending it on the MG34. Because the MG34, even though there are better German machine guns, like the MG34 with the Patronentrommel is better, it has a lot more ammo. But the MG34 is good enough that you can get it at BR3, and you can use it all the way through BR5. So if you're short on silver, I think you're better off getting the MG13, using the MG13, and then waiting on the ZB, and investing in the MG34, and then just not bothering with other machine guns until you have enough silver to care about them. Like, I think getting your tanks, your planes, your assault weapons, I think all of those are much more important once you get the MG34. But let me know what you guys think. Have you guys been using them since they moved them down? I mean, I have a whole squad from the Tunisia days that they all have Beretta M1s, Armagueras, ZB-26, so I have been using them, but I also have enough assault squads that I have assault squads with all sorts of different loadouts for all sorts of different things. I think it's pretty fun to use them, but like I said, the more that I look at the statistics, I think there's a lot of weapons in this game where initially I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool because I'm judging it just off of how it feels. But then when I actually sit down and like look at the stats, look at the game's economy, all that when I make these videos, the more I realize there are certain guns that, like, they're just not worth investing in unless you've got the extra silver to do so. Or if you want to be unique. I appreciate that there are people that will want to stand out, and I really appreciate running into and fighting people that have weapons and loadouts that I'm not used to running into. I think it makes things more interesting. So, if you're one of those people, more power to you, keep on rocking on. I like running into things that aren't just the same, you know, 2 or 3 weapons that I see every game. I haven't had the opportunity yet to mess with the VG2. I know they moved it down, and it looks like out of all of these weapons that moved down, it probably has the most potential. Because it's going to be a 10-round bolt-action rifle, but uniquely amongst all of the bolt-action rifles in the game, it's the only one that reloads with a detachable magazine. It's just, I only have the one that they originally gave me when I researched it in the Berlin campaign. And I'll need to actually spend the silver to outfit a rifleman squad or an engineer squad or something with them. And I just haven't bothered yet, but we'll probably look at that and look at the Leonfields, since the Leonfields moved down and they look like they're going to be cracked. I used to use them a ton in Tunisia, so I'm kind of excited for them. But the VG2, now that it's down here, I might actually get some use out of that. Anyway, let me know down below, what have you guys been using? Do you like the BR changes? I know that the more I look at them here, the more it doesn't seem like a huge change or anything, but I like having more options at BR2. I do think it's interesting, though, that instead of fixing the way that the matchmaking seems to be working, the game is very quickly becoming a 2-tier system, where we have like a low BR split and a high BR split. The way that things are going, with how many things have been moved down, I would almost wonder if BR3 is just going to go away at some point. I mean, there's still a ton of stuff in BR3, don't get me wrong, but every time that they do a BR update, there's like a dozen things, or like half a dozen things, that get moved out of BR3 and into BR2. So, we'll see. If you're somebody who's been spending silver on all the things that have moved down into BR2 as they move down into BR2, though, I bet it's getting expensive. I remember when the FNAB was like the top of BR2 and was, you know, just the king of kings when it came to submachine guns. And now we have the Beretta M1 and the MP40, so we'll see what the future holds. As per usual, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.